Hello, everyone. My name is Devin, and I will be presenting you with my personal canon as well as a visual. These five children's books are books that have helped shape my identity, and they really highlight more important things such as justice, belonging, and censorship, which is important for me. When I was a child, I realized that books are very critical for one's understanding and development. And so from this, I grew up with the idea that we needed to have equality and fairness for not all people. And someone who's most affected by this is the environment. And this is where the Lorax comes into play. In this class, we discuss the Lorax as well. And it's a critical point for people to read because it's not just a book about a fun little character or a movie, but it's actually something about becoming an adult and reflecting on one's mistakes and being able to understand that they were mistakes and that your ability to correct them is what's critical. And it's a story about taking responsibility even after you have this horrific thing that happens when we get rid of all trees. And it really reflects on how humans, or more or less people, are supposed to understand that our actions do have consequences for themselves. The book taught me how children are able to be exposed to political ideas at a young age and ask these bigger questions because children can understand them. And for me, the Lorax became a reminder that kids can think critically. These stories can plant ethical questions alongside having fun, and I think that's a very good mix. The next book was actually one that I found from this class, which is called Wings of the Wild. And Wings of the Wild is a book about poetry and activism, or a book of poetry and activism, of two people who are helping fight against environmental destruction. These, alongside my pen pal, have helped me feel a lot more personal. I really liked this book a lot. And it's really creative about how it approaches the topic of environmental destruction. Its relevance, survival, and hope are also highlighted throughout the movie, or the book, sorry. And the book connected me directly with my own project of how we cannot silence the voices of the youth and we should encourage them. The other book that we have on my list is The Front Desk by Kelly Yang. Front Desk affected me most personally. I think Maya Tang translates her story and becomes a really good understanding of how one can rise through and run your own motel, sorry. And through her story, I saw how advocacy could be quiet and still hold its own strength. Yang really had a lot of challenges and stereotypes that were placed upon her, and growing up balancing two cultures and being an immigrant or a child of immigrants also is a really hard thing to comprehend. As someone who has worked with students as a tutor, this book made me really think deeply about how people are represented and how important it is for young people to see that they are able to be in positions of power and see themselves in stories or jobs where others times they might not would not be. The next book that we had was Ghost Boys. It's the heaviest, and Rhodes really tells a story about Jerome, a boy who is killed by the police, echoing real life cases like Tamir Rice, which comes to mind. Reading this along the other books really has emotional weight of systemic injustices. And the line that really stuck with me throughout this book was, I can't shut down because I tell the truth. This book showed me that literature does not always comfort you, but oftentimes is something that can be hard to digest or comprehend, and that because of our empathy, we should be able to be okay with this discomfort, and it's okay with that. The next book was one that's not from the class, but was something that I have read before. Sherman Alexie's novel blends humor and heartbreak, and it sticks with me a lot of the time. The banned book is in many school districts because it's one of the most honest portrayals of belonging. Junior uses humor as a shield, but also as a form of resistance against people, and Alexie demonstrates what Muhammad describes as historically responsive literacy. Stories that teach us to think critically, identify intellect and find joy all at once is something that really is highlighted by this book. For me, it highlighted the way that Indigenous people are not always represented, and that it's essential that we bring their stories more to the light. My personal canon, shaping from where I'm from, is from the light desert of New Mexico, from the chilly in the air, and the people that I meet in my neighborhood who have been here for years and our families intertwined at this point. These canons are not just made up of stories, but are stories of resilience and shaping one's community. Thank you for that. I wanted to switch gears real quick and go to my visual. So, for my visual, I decided to make a website. And so, this website you can access, I'll leave the link below, and it discusses my books in children's literature, as well as some other topics like classical literature that I find really fascinating, media and films, some of my personal favorite films or movies, the canon from here, as well as the link to my paper if you want to read about the books, as well as my full paper. Thank you guys for all listening.